Hello, everyone, and welcome to the IPPS-A Sustainment webinar series. Today's webinar is on semi-centralized and centralized promotions within IPPS-A. My name is Captain Marisha McLean, and I'm your moderator for today's webinar. Joining as the primary speaker is First Sergeant Timothy Bilbrey. First Sergeant Bilbrey is the enlisted promotions manager from the Virginia Army National Guard. Before we begin, I have a few items to cover about this presentation and the VCS webinar platform. First, today's webinar is being recorded and will be available on both the IPPS-A YouTube channel and IPPS-A S1Net training page. Second, if your VCS connection drops during the webinar, please close your browser and use the provided VCS link to reconnect. Next, your microphones and phone lines are on mute. You must press 0 to speak. Please expect a 1 to 2 second lag when speaking. If you would like to download parts of this presentation during the webinar, please use the download icon located below the presentation window. Please also note that the read ahead or the instructional slide version of this webinar is available on S1Net today. Lastly, please post your questions to the public chat panel so that we can answer them throughout the session. In addition to live responses, all questions and their corresponding answers will be posted with this video to the IPPS-A YouTube channel and the IPPS-A S1Net training pages. Your questions and feedback matter, so please share. Without further ado, I now present to you First Sergeant Bilbrey.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm First Sergeant Bilbrey. As she mentioned, I'm the enlisted promotions manager for Virginia. I was real excited to be able to help with this today. Virginia went live as part of Fielding Group 2, so we've been live for right about a year now, and a lot of bumps in the road at the beginning. Things have got a lot better now, and they're going to continue to get better. But I want to take this opportunity today to show you things that we've learned along the way. Hopefully it'll make your job easier, things that maybe we wish we would have known, and we'll just continue on then. All right, so the overview for today, we're going to look over the centralized and semi-centralized promotions. We'll look at process maps of how the board roster process looks. We're going to go ahead and look at the IPPS-A promotion date crosswalk, home and host expectations, and then also how you can actually promote someone off the board roster. And the demonstration will be on creating a board, walking start to finish on that. How soldiers will actually update their own preferences for their board roster that they're a part of, and then how the board roster can be managed, both at the state level, brigade, battalion, company, all along the way, and then how to actually complete the board. And if you have questions along the way, please shoot them in the comment box. I want to be able to help you out as much as possible. All right, so overview of semi-centralized and centralized. So there's really 3 ways to manage those in IPPS-A. You can do it from the board roster, you can do it from a special promotion par or a demotion par. Now with the board rosters, that's going to give the commanders, the units, as kind of a snapshot in time of all their assigned soldiers that are eligible to be considered by that board. It'll show if they're flagged, it'll show the graded position they're in. Also, if you're doing an officer's board, it'll validate, it'll show if they have a Fed Rec already validated. It also will show if they meet the professional military education requirements, SSD requirement, and it'll show whether they meet the time and grade and time and service requirements to be considered by the board. Now, when the board is created, it actually takes into consideration the expanded zone of consideration. So when an admin cutoff date is set for a board, it will account anyone that will meet the requirements, the time and grade, time and service requirements during the life of the list. So for example, if I was going to do a board and the admin cutoff, if I was doing the admin cutoff date was 30 April of this year, it would automatically calculate time and grade, time and service for anyone that would meet it between, even of course now and then all the way through April of 21, because they meet that during the life of the list. So that's all that expanded zone of consideration is all worked in there and calculated already. They'll be accounted for. Now, the special promotion part, this is going to apply when you do promotion actions that are outside of the board process. Anytime you do a special promotion par, that is going to route automatically to the S1 pool of the home unit, And the unit SOP, the state SOP, that'll dictate what happens from there. If you're doing orders from the state level, it's still going to route to that S1 pool, but you do have capabilities to go in there and pull it back to your level to continue to process it if that's part of your SOP. The demotion part is going to be the same thing for reductions, routes to the S1 pool. Now, here's a huge thing that I think will help you, is that promotion rosters, if you do a promotion off the board roster, it's going to require less people to touch than a par. Because any par that you initiate is going to have 3 different people touch it. You have the person who initiates it, you have a separate reviewer, and a separate approver. Now, you maybe previously worked in the system. I know in our office we had one person that generally did all the promotion orders. So we went from having one person that was able to do the whole promotion order to now we had to have 3 people in the process. Caused extra work, extra headache. But a workaround of that is to just promote off the board roster, because with that, one person can actually just do the entire promotion off the board roster. All right, and here's a process map, the board roster process. This is for the semi. So when the board is created, its first is in pre-board status, and this is where the majority of the work by the company and the soldier and the commander will get done. And this is where a lot of it's managed up until the board itself. So this is, the board is created. When it's created, it can be either with or without preferences. And during this time is when units would update soldiers' records to make sure their promotion points get updated correctly and that they reflect on the board roster. And then the board roster will continually be updated and reran throughout the time up until the board date to make sure everyone's captured. So before the actual board date, units, battalions, brigades, state, everyone needs to be making sure that every soldier on that board roster has a commander recommendation. It's accounted for, and whether it's non-recommend or the soldier decline, or the soldier actually elected to be chosen. So it needs to make sure that while it's in pre-board, soldiers have made their elections and the units have made their elections. Now, a lot of the timelines, that's going to be based on whatever MOI is established in your state. So it'll, as far as how long it'll be in pre-board status. I know the Guard is going to be different than active duty, because the Guard, we'll open up a board now. It'll be in pre-board, but our actual board will take place, 4 or 5 months from now, to give everyone time to do the promotion required actions along the way. And once the board status changes to board, now there's not really anything for the Guard that needs to happen while it's in board status. It's more of just a stepping stone. It's changed the board status, and then from board status, you move it into post-board. And once it's in post-board, that's where you can actually start managing it and actually doing promotion orders off of the board roster. And the list, if you do make someone else select them for promotion, this board roster, it does update nightly, and it'll show you if soldiers fail consideration. It'll tell you why they failed consideration right on the board roster. Now, for the centralized, it's basically the same process, just different ranks for these, but it's very similar process. Of course, there's no promotion points to update for these boards, but it is the same process. Now, these boards can also be generated to use for officer promotions. I haven't personally done those, and this is generally speaking to the enlisted promotions, but it would be the same similar process to create a board. And so as I walk through in a little bit creating the board, you'll be able to see the process if you want to build one to do your officer promotions. Of course, the FedRec still has to be updated outside of the board process before the order would be published. All right. So with the board rosters, the considerations and preferences, they are selected during the create the board process, meaning when the state or whoever's building that initial board, they're creating it, any preferences that you all want to be on there for the soldiers to choose from has to be done while it's being created the first time. You can't create the board and then realize, oh, we forgot to add a certain preference. We need to go back in and add it. You'd have to create a whole new board. Additionally, automatically, the batch process runs every day to promote those that had been selected. The rosters can be reran as many times as needed in case you need to capture any ISPs or any in-service recruits that have come to the state recently and they're not showing on the board. And what that means when it says reran, is actually going back into the create a board tile and opening up this board and clicking create board again, and that's where it reruns. Additionally, for the semi-centralized, for the promotion points, you'll have to run something called a points batch process, which updates promotion points along the way. I'll show that slide a little bit later as well. Now, here's something else. All the information that shows on the board when you create the board is static. It doesn't change from the time it's created then. It's there for the life of the board. So, for example, the time in service and time in grade, it'll show 25 months time in grade when you create that board. 6 months from now, you pull up in that same board, it's still going to show 25 months time in grade. Now, in the background, it'll show the soldier eligible, calculates everything's fine, but it never changes there. Now, I did a CRM ticket on this last year sometime because I think that should update. I would say to you, if you also think those things shouldn't be static, do a CRM ticket. Because one thing I've learned throughout this process with everything with IPPS-A, the more visibility on things that the field thinks is a problem, it'll get more attention and more people do a CRM ticket. So if you think, yes, this shouldn't be static, it should show updated time and grade, time and service every time the board's ran, then please do a CRM ticket on that. Now, visibility of the board roster is going to be limited based on Rose class. So if you're at a company level, you'll only see the soldiers within your company, battalion, brigade, so on and so forth. If a soldier is demoted during the time of the board cycle, they will be reinserted into whatever board then that they're now eligible for. And it will also add a comment that they were demoted and that it automatically put them promotion non-select, so they won't worry about being selected automatically for promotion by showing up on the new board. Also with the flags, if a flag is removed from someone, it updates that their first eligible date to be promoted then would be the day after the flag is removed. All right, terminology here. This is one that took me a little bit of time to get my head wrapped around when I was coming right from CIDPERS and now into IPPS-A, and the names of certain things changed just a little bit. They're close, but it was enough to kind of mess me up a little bit. So the grade entry date. Back in CIDPERS, that was just date of rank. And that grade entry date, that's what's tracking your seniority. That's tracking your time and grade to account for eligibility for promotion and seniority. But it's now grade entry date. In IPPS-A, there is an effective date. And in CIDPERS, that was the effective date of grade. That was the effective date of the transaction, the date you actually started getting paid at that higher grade. And then lastly, the rank entry date. And that's the one, this rank entry date is where it kept messing with me a little bit because I was going back to date of rank as it was known in CIDPERS. Now the rank entry date is the date that the rank changes, not the grade. Now 9 times out of 10, all 3 of those dates are going to be the same in the majority of the cases. Where you'll run into times where they'll change is, for example, like myself, I'm a first sergeant. However, I was promoted 1 April of 16 to master sergeant. Then I became a first sergeant 1 November of 17. So for myself, my grade entry date is still 1 April of 16, but my rank entry date is 1 November of 17. But the only thing that's really accounting for my time and grade to affect that seniority is the grade entry date. So generally, it'll all be the same unless situations like first sergeants and master sergeants, CSM, sergeant majors, and then also corporals and specialists in their lateral to corporal, you would have a different rank entry date from the grade entry date. All right, home and host expectations. The biggest thing to take away from this is that the home unit is the only one that can process all the promotions actions happen at the home unit, at the 0 record. So this is another thing where we did a CRM ticket on this because it ran into some headache. It's going to cause it's going to require further coordination a lot of times, because a lot of times you'll have soldiers that are attached out to a unit that's going to process the board actions for promotion, but now they actually have to reach back to that home unit, even though maybe they haven't drilled with them in a year because they've been attached to this other unit, and say, hey, we need you to go in and recommend this guy for consideration. So when you pull up your board roster, you will not see anyone that's attached to you. You only see the home unit is the only unit that has visibility on that. So if you think that's a problem, I once again would say please go do a CRM ticket and say that the host units should be able to see them, because as the 600-200 says, the attached unit is responsible for training, pay, and administration, which promotion should fall under. So, but as it stands, only the home unit can see the soldier during the promotion board. All right, and this is just kind of talking about the order generation versus doing a manual update to job data. So basically, anytime job data is going to change to promote them in the salary plan, you need an order to back that up. Now, if some of you have just recently went live in one of the recent fielding groups, you may have promotion orders that were processed outside of IPPS-A prior to going live. Now, when that's the case, you can do a direct input in job data into a row, insert a row, and change the salary plan. Now, this actually won't update the pay. You will also still need to send a copy of that to the USPFO to make sure to get their pay change, because it will only affect pay change if there's an order that matches the job row update. So should probably just be a small period of time while you're needing to do that. But for everyone else, if you've been live for a while and then moving forward, you wouldn't just insert promotion rows into job data. There'd need to be an order generated, and then that will fire off the 10 to promote the soldier and get them paid. All right, for the demonstration, what I'm going to do, I actually have went through and did screenshots all along the way as far as for all these steps. I know sometimes there's a lag, and I didn't want to have logged in IPPS-A, and of course it not work at that point. We all know that sometimes happens. So what I wanted to do is just go ahead and do some screenshots of the process along the way so you can walk you through the steps in each of these, either creating a board, selecting preferences, the board roster processing, and then promoting off a board. All right, so the first thing you're going to do when you create a board, you're going to go to the search function. I find that's the easiest way to get new tiles. Just go to the search function and search for board creation. And you'll see this tile there, then you can add that tile. Once you open up board creation, you're going to have two options. You're going to find an existing value or to add a new value. So you're going to click on add a new value. You'll then click on the magnifying glass, and it'll pull up all the different templates that are available. Now, as you see, there's board templates for E4, E5, E4, E5 with preference, E5, E6, so on and so forth. And you'll see there's the officer boards are on there as well. So you'll just click on the board that you're wanting to create. And what that with preference is, meaning on your promotion list, if soldiers are eligible to elect their mileage election, how far they're wanting to travel, that would be, you would need to use a board with preferences when you create your board to be able to do that. All right. Once you open up the template that you need, it'll have the template ID there. First thing you're going to do, you're going to name the board, and that'll just be based on whatever your state established naming conventions are. So we just call ours Virginia FY20 E5 to E6 promotion board. Any comments of the description you want to add in there, you'll add the year of the board. Next, you'll add the admin cutoff date, and this is where it's important that you with this one, because like I mentioned, this is what's going to evaluate to determine time and grade and time and service eligibility cutoff. It's going to be based off this admin cutoff date. So if your board's going to be 1 through 5 May, you may make your admin cutoff date 30 April. Next 5 is just going to be the rank for that board. Then you enter in 6 your convene dates. And then lastly, you have the board preferences that you're going to click on this little box down here. If you happen to save the board before you add board preferences, like I mentioned earlier, there's no way to go back and add them later. So make sure if you have a board with preferences that you follow this step and you click on board preferences now. When you click on board preferences, it's going to pop up a box with preference actions. You're going to click on the magnifying glass, and it will pop up all the different types of preferences available that you can add to your board. So if you're adding mileage election, you would click on mileage. Once that's pulled up, you then have the option, once again, a magnifying glass, and there's options for you to choose different mileage elections for that. So you'll notice there's many different mileage elections because a lot of different states will do it a lot of different ways, and the 608-19 allows for that. It gives various options that you can offer with mileage. So some states use geographical preferences, geographical areas. Other states are just mileage. Other states are just brigade, battalion, and so on. So you'll see you have these options on the side. You'll click whichever one, apply. You'll add it, and then you'll just repeat the process to add however many options are going to be on your board. And you'll select one as a default. It won't let you continue on unless you click one as a default. And then you go back. If you have another preference type, it's just the same process. You add it again. So if you also have a preference of for senior boards, that do you want to be considered for a leadership position? You go back in, leadership assignment, and then you just add the options yes or no. So that'll just be based on the way your state runs the board as far as what preferences will be, but it's very simple to add them in. All right. Once you have all the preferences saved, you've put all the information in, you're going to go down there to the bottom and you're going to click save. Once you save it, now you'll go back to the top and you'll click create board. Now when you create board, depending on the size of the board, it'll take a little bit of time for it to actually build. So the senior boards where it might be a smaller population, they'll build fairly quickly. If it's an E4 to E5 board, obviously that's a very large population. It may take 30 minutes for that board to build. All you can do is just wait for that to build, but you can monitor along the way by clicking on Process Monitor and track the progress of it as it builds. And at that point, once it's built, it will be in pre-board. All right. Once you have completed your board and you need to move it to, you've completed pre-board, you're ready to move to board, and you're ready to move to post-board, you'll go back into the same board creation tile. You'll open the board that you're working on, and then you'll see the little drop down here. In the drop down, you'll just move it from pre-board to board. Go down and click save. Then you'll click create board. Once again, the same process as before. It builds in the background, takes a little bit of time, and then it's complete. It's the same process whenever you're ready to move it to post-board. Come back in, change the drop down to post-board, save, and then create board. All right, I see the question here from Soren Howard. If IPPS-A tracks the expanded zone of consideration automatically? Yes, it does. So if I set my admin cutoff date for 30 April, it will continue to track anyone that meets the requirements between up until 30 April of 21. So it does track that expanded zone automatically. It calculates that in there. All right, promotion board preferences. Now, getting to this part here, this is one of the, I'd say, game changers for doing the promotion process as far as fundamentally changing the way it's been done in the Guard. So previously in the Guard, every year you had to do your 4100. The commander recommends you for consideration. You sign, say, yes, I want to be considered for promotion. All the units gather up the 4100, push them up to the state level, and the promotion packets are built. Gone are the days of the 4100. Now, the soldier will actually make their election of whether or not they want to be considered and what their preferences are right within IPPS-A in their board preferences. So it'll be the same process for all the boards. There are a couple extra steps, though, for the semi-centralized. And the beauty of this is that this is something they can actually do from their smartphone. After we had built our board, the first class we were giving on this to the field, I actually had someone in the class pull out their phone and go ahead and validate their board preferences right from their phone. So that was a huge win to be able to do that. It doesn't require CAC login, and soldiers are able to get their promotion board preferences updated. So responsibilities for E4 and E5, they're going to need to go in and they're going to have to actually review their promotion points in IPPS-A. If something's wrong or missing, Just like before, they need to submit supporting documentation to their units to then update. And then once their promotion points are updated and corrected, they'll need to validate their points and choose their promotion elections in board preferences. For the senior boards, same thing, they'll have to go in, they'll validate their board preferences, and then whatever else your state MOI may have that they'll have to do. For ours, they had to validate their ERB still, ensure it's an IPERMS, because that's what the board's going to be looking at. And then, of course, for the reg, they could submit a memo still, but that's for the board process to happen outside of IPPS-A. All right. Now, for the E4 and E5, here's what it'll look like step by step. And this was actually a handout that I created to give to the units to actually give to their soldiers so they could know how to do it. So what they're going to do, of course, now 5s where they're eligible to get promotion points based on the PPOM that came out earlier this year. They will also be doing it just like the E4s. So they're just going to search for promotion points. It's going to pull up this promotion points tile then. Once they click on that, it'll show their current promotion points, what there are. So they'll review those, see if they're accurate. From there, they'll go to board preferences. Now this board preferences tile, it should automatically populate on a soldier self-service anytime that they are, if a board has been generated and they're eligible to be a part of that board, the tile should generate. If it doesn't, no big deal. Just go search for it and open it. Once in, you need to click yes that they want to be considered for the board. There next it says enter your 3-digit MOS. Now this should be your primary MOS, duty MOS, unless you've already changed your career progression MOS and that's been approved per 60819, in which case you could go ahead and put your CP MOS there. Next, you'd click yes to validate promotion points, yes to validate the preferences, select whatever preferences are available to you on the board. And the one thing I'd say that if the promotion points aren't correct, the soldier should wait and make sure they get corrected by the unit before they validate, because by validating, they're saying, yes, everything is correct here. Another point I want to bring up is as far as mileage elections. So the mileage elections are based off the residence address. So that's going to be on the 5960, and that actually shows as the mailing address in IPPS-A. Now, this is kind of another one of those terminology things, because in SIPRs, the mailing address was not the same as the home address all the time, and the home address is what accounted for mileage elections. Big thing here is to make sure they understand any mileage calculations will be based off of the mailing address that they update in self-service in IPPS-A. Once we get all the elections made, we'll just click save and exit. All right, for the senior board, same process, except that they're not having to validate any promotion points. One thing I want to mention also about, I mentioned the PPOM that came out now to adjust to where the E5 to E6 board now will go to promotion points, just like the 4 to 5 board. Currently, there is not a template built to allow you to do that board. Now, that I talked with the program yesterday. It's been approved to build that template. It should be hitting the template sometime during this month. So there'll be a new template added that says E5 to E6 with points and preference, if you need to add that. Right. Now we're going to move into processing the board roster. Now, these are the actions that it would take at the unit level. Whatever your state ends up dictating as far as who's going to act in this, it will be is where all the promotion points will be updated. Now, the APFT and the weapon qual, that's going to be fed straight from DTMS, and those points will automatically be calculated based off the scores that pulled over from DTMS. Any awards, that's going to need to be updated manually in profile management. Units will go in, they'll update. Okay, I'm sorry, let's see, someone just mentioned that I was breaking up about the PPOM. Okay, what I said about the PPOM was that that the point, excuse me, what I said about the PPOM was that there's not currently a template that allows for E5 to E6 with points, but they're in the process of building that template, and it should be available during the month of April. All right, so going back to the updating promotion points, the units are going to do this from within the Profile Management tab. That's where they're going to update scores for schools, for college, and for correspondence courses. One of the unique tools that's available that a lot of people don't realize is that there's a training tile available. And if you use the training tile, and this is outside of Profile Management, it's a separate tile, it'll pull all the ATARS training that you've completed. So if you need to verify that the soldier completed SSD or DLC, you'll be able to just look at the training tile, and then it'll pull a history to be able to validate if DLC or SSD was completed. Now here's how the promotion points would be updated. You're going to go into the Profile Management tab tile. You're going to select the Education tab. From there, you scroll to the bottom, and you'll see it says Semi-Centralized Promotion Points. So you'll click there. And from there, you have the option to update promotion points for, as I mentioned, for resident military courses, for total college credits, and also self-development. Now, one thing of note on the resident courses. So the 619 changed when it came out last year, and now if an E4 has completed DLC, they are to be awarded 25 points for that. Now, the military resident course, it only calculates 5 points per week. So the only way to adjust that to give them those 25 points for DLC is to change the resident course to 5 weeks so that they do get this full 25 points for DLC. Once you have all the updates saved, you'll be able to go to the bottom, click Save, and it will be saved to the soldier's record. Now, once you've updated the soldier's individual record, and I'll say this once you actually have done everyone in your unit, that does not automatically update the board roster with the promotion point. So what you'll need to do is, once again, we've got another tile we need to search for. It's called the promotion points batch process. And this is what actually will update the promotion points onto the board roster. So if you search for the tile, promotion point batch process, when that opens, you need to create a run control ID, and you can name that whatever you want. I generally recommend to make that the same number as your board roster number, so you remember what you created. Then you'll enter the board ID for the board that you're wanting to update promotion points for. You'll click Run. Once again, it'll take a bit of time to run in the background, and that will update the promotion points on the board roster. If you need to update soldiers that have completed their PME, so if their PME has been updated in Profile Management and it needs to update on the board roster, you'll do this from directly in the board roster by clicking Run Eligibility in the board roster, and do this any time throughout the process. All right, if you want to go in to view the board roster, you'll search for board roster. Once you get into the board roster tile, you're going to click on Search to view any existing board rosters that are out there. You'll then be able to see all the existing board rosters that have been created within your state, and you'll click on the appropriate one that you need. You'll see it's in pre-board during that time. Once you open the board roster, you'll need to click Filter, because until then it actually won't show any names on it at all. So if you just leave it with all service members checked, it'll filter and show all service members. I'm looking now in the question I see, will the run eligibility work for boards that were initiated in January. Yes, anytime you rerun the eligibility, it'll update, regardless of when it was created. All right, we're moving to the board processing still. So this is where, in Virginia, we delegated this down to the company levels to manage the board rosters as far as doing the input, because it was that company commander that was making the recommendation. A lot of input would be required, and it would be too many actions to be done at the state level or even at the brigade battalion. So this was delegated all the way down to the company level. When they go into the board roster and they filtered it, they're going to see, like we said earlier, based on Rose A class, they'll see only the soldiers assigned to them. And when you go to the board roster, you see 4 different tabs across the top. But what you want to do, the easiest thing to do is to click on this tab that expands all the columns so that you can see the entire board roster. Once it's all expanded is where you'll be able to view everything and be able to manage it. And also, if you want, you can export it. So if you scroll all the way to the right, you'll then be able to see where you can export it to Excel. And then, of course, from here, you can delete, add, change things, and manage the roster at least. It allows you to create a better product to maybe give to your commander to review things, because you can add and remove, take out things that you don't need there that they don't need to see, but at least they can review the board roster that way. Now, back on the left side of that is the board results. And this is where the recommendations actually made. So either the commander's going in to make these recommendations or their delegates. So in the board results column, it's either going to decline consideration if the soldier already made their preference choice, failed consideration, of course, if they don't meet eligibility requirements, recommend for consideration, and withheld from consideration. Those are the 4 choices that it could show there. Now, the one thing I'll note, with withheld from consideration, remember that there are requirements per 608-19 for our timeline. If you are going to withhold someone from consideration, it has to be at least 30 days before the board to give them a chance to rebuttal to the next higher approved authority if they are going to be withheld from consideration. If a soldier does show that they failed consideration, it automatically says that. It will tell you in the comments why they failed consideration. So if the soldier completed SSD and they're like, hey, I completed SSD, why is it still showing failed consideration? Well, one of 2 things. Either the profile management education tab wasn't updated to show that they completed it, or 2, the run eligibility had not been done after the profile management was updated. So if they said they've completed it, if it's been updated, just run eligibility again, and then it should no longer say that they failed consideration. All right. Now here's another thing that wasn't initially able to be input in the board roster. This just changed, I think in February, it's finally able to be updated. So we have the NGB 4101, the leadership appraisals for those 4 to 5 and 5 to 6 now, where they get those leadership appraisal points, possible 600 points. Now, there's no way to do that worksheet within the system, but there is the capability to actually add those points in. So those points are added into the board roster here, and it's right here where it says promotion board score. That's where you input the averaged leadership appraisal points. And specific input instructions may vary based on your state's MOI as far as what will actually happen with the 4101 themselves, but I would just say look to guidance from your state for that. Additionally, here's the thing that both at a company level and actually battalion, brigade, state manage all the time it's in pre-board. This is where you could see if the soldier actually already went in and validated their preferences. So like for this soldier, you can go in and see, yes, they've checked to be considered for promotion. Yes, they validated their preference. So with just one look at the board roster, you can see a snapshot of the entire unit and see who's already completed the requirements. And the ones that haven't, then you get on the horn with their leadership. Hey, Snuffy still needs to go in there and make their elections for this board. You know, it's closing next week. They need to make sure they get this in, or whatever your MOI sets the suspense as. But for everyone in the chain above, they can be looking down below to make sure that the battalions are making sure their companies are compliant, brigades making sure the battalions, so on and so forth. All right, board roster processing for centralized. It's basically the same process, except there's not going to be points updated. So just go through this real quick because it's really the same process. Search, find board roster. You're going to search to view the existing boards. Once again, you'll click on the board that you need, and then you'll filter it. From there, same thing, tab to show all columns. If you want to export it, you'll be able to. And the commanders or their representative can make the recommendations right there in the board roster for each soldier. Once again, if they failed consideration, make appropriate updates, rerun the board eligibility, and it should correct itself. And once again, units will continue to monitor to make sure that the soldier has selected "I wish to be considered," and they have validated their preference, which is essentially signing their 4100 in old terminology. And this is where you would click on that run eligibility right there within the board roster at the top. All right, promoting off a board roster. Once a board roster has been moved from pre-board to board to post-board, once it's in post-board, you can promote off of it. So same process for searching for the board roster. You go search the board roster tile, then you click, you find the board you want to look at. When you open that board, same thing as before, you filter to show everyone on the board. In this example here, we have a soldier. We're going to go over to the board results. He currently was showing recommend for consideration. What you're going to do is you click on that drop down and change him to promotion select. Once they change to promotion select, you'll see that these boxes open next to them for the effective date, grade entry date, and rank entry date. You'll put in the effective date for the promotion with the date in all three boxes. Should match the majority of the time. Once you get a date in, scroll to the bottom, you click save, and the soldier will be promoted overnight. So if you have multiple promotions that you'll need to do off the same board roster, just go in, change the ones you need to promotion select, change the all the dates, put the dates in, and then save it, and they'll promote overnight. So it's much simpler to promote the soldiers. It's much simpler to manage the process along the way, and it's much simpler for the soldier themselves to choose their preferences and say that they want to be considered for promotion. I'm looking at a question here. Does IPPS-A allow the soldier to select more than one region or geographical area in the board preferences? That's a great question, sir. I'm not sure. We don't use the geographical preferences or the region. So the way we did it, we only had mileage, so they could only select one. But that's a very valid question. I'd be curious to know the answer on that myself, because if you're wanting to allow them to pick more than one. Another comment here, don't forget to change the MOS. If you promote off the roster, make sure that you are scrolling over to the right to also update their primary MOS to that next higher grade as well. Thank you, Tracy, for pointing that out to me. All right, so in summary, we've done a review of the semi-centralized and centralized promotions, walked through the process maps, looked at those board rosters, did the crosswalk of the promotion dates, discussed the home and host expectations, and looked at how you can promote directly off the board roster. Are there any other questions before I turn this back over to Captain McLean? Awesome. Well, thanks for letting me share with you today. I hope it's been beneficial to you. I am available if you have any questions. I'm in Global, Timothy Bilbrey. Feel free to reach out to me. If you have specifics, we can talk about stuff, and I help you in any way I can. Captain McLean, it's yours.
Thank you again, First Sergeant. I really appreciate it. While we still have all the users here, I just want to direct you all to this particular snapshot of S1Net. And so this is just to show you where these guides, the job aids associated with promotion boards are going to be located, as well as where you'll be able to find the informational deck that was presented today and where the highlights will be posted. So right now on S1Net, the slide deck that you see that you were able to download today is also available on S1Net. Within a week, we'll provide this same deck with additional highlights that just kind of highlight some of the stuff that might have been a little unclear today into that deck. And so those will both be available in this IPPS-A webinar series folder and training folders. And again, it'll be about a week before that will be located. But we have a pretty large library of job aids growing here in this guides folder. So if you have anything that you feel is unclear about how to do a transaction within IPPS-A, from very simple to complex work, please check this folder. And then if you don't see what you're looking for, reach out to us and let us know so we can make an update and then potentially schedule a webinar based off of that. That kind of leads me into this particular survey slide. While we still have some users on, I encourage you all to just answer these 4 questions quickly in the chat panel, or take note of this mailbox email address and send your responses to us in there. We try to be very responsive within a day or two. Essentially, number 4 is the most important. If you wanted to prioritize, we want to know what you want to know. That way that we can help ensure that whatever information we're pushing out is relevant to you, and we prioritize correctly within the program. So I'm going to lead us up for just a moment. Now I'll return back to the slide, but just for officially closing, I want to thank everyone for attending today's webinar. We will keep this conference open for an additional 10 minutes so that further comments can be added to the chat panel. Please visit our IPPS-A social media pages and subscribe to our YouTube channel for webinar postings, functional videos, and news from the IPPS-A team. Again, thank you all for joining.